Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Sellberg. I'm Executive Vice President at Vertex Software for Market Strategy and Operations. And today I'm pleased to be joined with a couple new members of the Vertex team. Shree Moorthy, who is our Senior Vice President of Digital Transformation Strategy. Hi, Shree. And Eric Sterling, who is a new Strategic Advisor for Vertex Software. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Shree.
Hello.
So I know we all go back a long way, but I would like you guys to take a little bit of time here to describe your backgrounds and kind of the journey you've been on up to this point. Eric, I think you've been in the industry since probably the early 1950s. So why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I actually date back to about 1979, officially in the CAD/CAM industry when I was a freshman, just came out of freshman year, and my dad asked me if I knew how to program Fortran, and I said, yeah. So he threw me into the CAD/CAM industry. From there, I ended up going, obviously going back to school, but I came back to work for him from 82 to 88 in the CAD/CAM industry. And then I made a switch and went into the EDA industry with Mentor Graphics. So I worked for Mentor Graphics from 88, I guess, to 96. And it seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago. I always started in a company programming and then found a gravitational pull towards the customer. Back in the day, they would call me a product champion. Today, you would say you're in the product management space, but it was always the attraction of what is the customer doing and how do I translate that into what we should be doing in development. In 96, I joined that wonderful company that Mike was a part of too, engineering animation. The way I joined was I got shoved in the door at Ford the very first day. They picked me up in a parking structure, drove me down to Ford, and threw me into a digital buck meeting and said, you're now the program manager for what was called the digital buck. Conceptually, there was nothing there. Well, physically, there was nothing there. Conceptually, we had quite a bit to offer from an EAI standpoint, and I was responsible for trying to get it out into the enterprise hands, which we were successful at. From there, they shoved me into the GM door. I think it was about like February 10th or something. A year later, I got shoved into the GM door and said, do the same, which we did. And then from there, GM and Ford both said, we're highly dependent on digital mockup and the JT file format. We need others to adopt it. So I went off and started the JT Open program, Mike, that you eventually inherited, I believe.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was good.
Yeah, it was, and Mike Zink and the whole crew. We eventually got bought in 2001 by UGS. Mike, I think you stayed on until 2008, and Dan, he left. A lot of the crew left, a lot of the crew stayed. I stayed through, I guess I would have to say tens, if not multiple tens, mergers, acquisitions of various companies, EDS, all of that. Ended up Siemens buying us. I had all sorts of roles at Siemens, including product marketing management. Eventually landed on general manager of Team Center, enterprise, PDM software. I did that because I thought it was kind of my last big thing to do. For me to prove that I could actually handle a $750 million company that's global. So I was originally going to retire in 2016 and got tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, look, Siemens is buying Mentor Graphics. We'd love to have you go do the integration of Mentor Graphics with Siemens. So I stayed on a couple more years and did the integration, kind of operated the company for a couple more years. So I did full circle. I started in 1988 at Mentor Graphics and ended at Mentor Graphics running the company. So that's probably more than you wanted to know, but that's my career.
No, that's definitely an interesting journey, Eric, for sure. So I know I enjoyed my time at EAI and UGS and Siemens with you. So thanks. Shree, how about you? Let's take a little walk down history.
Yeah, mine was not as interesting as Eric's, of course, but you know, there are lots of similar aspects to this, right? So uh, I was working at this company called Detroit Center Tool in Troy and Detroit. I mean, we were building car plans for, or helping to build car plans for the big three. And I was actually working on the '99 model year Jeep Grand Cherokee, the WJ program, right? And what happened was I needed software to help my engineers do their things better. I'm an industrial engineer by trade, so everything to do with routing of material and trying to figure out where things should be, et cetera, et cetera. So for that particular plant, and I came across this company, little bitty company called Sim Technologies, that was getting acquired by a company called Engineering Animation, right? And what they did was they said, oh, we have something called Factory Flow. It does you know, routing of parts. It does various other things. It's really, really cool. So I said, okay, you know what, that sounds good. And I brought them on and we started using that tool. And then found out that there was a huge difference between academia, you know, the kind of stuff that you build in school versus what the industry actually needs. So I started giving them advice on what they should do to make the software better. And soon enough, that time it was Dave Sly and TJ Snyman. These guys said, you know what, why don't you just hop over, right? Become our guy for these digital, we're calling them e-factory products, is what he said, right? I said, hey, why not, right? That's my jump into EAI. So that was, I think, oh dear, some date in 97 or 98, end of 97 or middle of, or starting beginning of 98. And I joined them and I started to manage the, you know, the factory products as they called it at that time. And then we got sold to UGS, and you know, that whole thing happened that Eric spoke about. I left Siemens PLM in 2009, having been the director for the factory. They call it the digital factory products, right? And moved to Tata Technologies, which is based in India. It's a global company. It's based in India, of course, to start their PLM division. And so my thing with EAI, UGS, EDS, PLM, and Siemens and all that was about between 98 and 2009. And you know, I was talking to Eric a few months ago, saying that, man, you know, I need that excitement, right? I need to jump back. It's destiny, man. I'm telling you. I was talking to him and he says, you won't believe it, right? And I said, what do you mean? I said, no. Here's what I told him. I said, you know what? A bunch of us EAI guys should get together and start a company again, right? So that's my story. But it had been a wild ride, and I mean, I'm telling you, I've never had as much fun as I did at EAI, and that's basically what I was looking for, and that's how I guess I found Vertex.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's interesting the sim technology background, Shree. Another Ames, Iowa company like Vertex Software. Also, you know, some of the founders of the AI started Workiva, which is in Ames, Iowa. So certainly Ames is a hotbed for startup companies. And in fact, those same guys are still, I think they've got a company going here in Ames as well. So it's really interesting. So Eric, I'm dying to know. So what? So tell us a little bit about what got you excited about Vertex, and then how did you sell it to Shree?
Well, so the second time I retired, Kind of like a bad stink, I suppose. But the second time I retired, within maybe a week, I got a phone call from Dan, CEO of Vertex. He said he was going to be in Detroit that week or that next week. Would I come have lunch or dinner with him? And I said, sure. So we went out to dinner and, caught up. You guys had done Workovia and I hadn't done that. I didn't go off and do that with you. So we caught up on all that news. And then he pulled out an iPad and started showing me large models. We were sitting in Greektown in downtown Detroit. So crowded room, bunch of people, cell phones, blah, blah, blah going off. And he's showing me large models on his iPad. So the end of the night, he said, what do you think, Eric? I said, I think you got the tiger by the tail. And he said, well, what do you think about joining us? And I said, I think I'm a skeleton right now. I just came out of, Team Center and Mentor. Call me in a year. And I think I ended up calling him because of COVID and my daughter was at a company. Wanted to find out what small companies we're going to be doing. And we struck the conversation up again. He furthered my appetite on what I call, so I have an enterprise mentality, of course. I was running Team Center. He furthered my appetite on what cloud native really means. So I just kept getting more and more intrigued. And the deeper I got, the more some of the things that I thought were absolutely necessary fell down by the wayside. And so I got really excited. And the deeper I got, the more I learned. And the more I learned, the more excited I got. The more I was willing to say, yeah, I'll join as an advisor. And I think that's kind of the Vertex modus operandi, to get people excited and comfortable, and then they join. And for Shree, I think I went through kind of the tiers of breaking down an enterprise mentality into cloud native 3D visualization and actually leveraging the web. And that's pretty much what I conveyed to him to get him. And then plus I pitched the fun we were going to have. 11 barrels of fun is all I got to say. So
just so you know, Eric, I also came on to Vertex about 3 years ago out of retirement as a strategic advisor, and I'm still here. So just and Dan, that's how Dan did that as well. So just
exactly. I'm really worried about that. I don't want to come fully out of retirement, but yeah. Yeah.
I know you've got too many projects. You got too many.
Yeah.
So Shree, despite the fact that Eric tried to recruit you to Vertex, what brought you to this small company from Ames, Iowa again?
So, truth be told, right, I was looking to move back to the U.S. I'm in India right now, right, and my daughters were growing up. The older one was getting ready for university, college, the younger one for high school. Perfect time, right? And I was just trying to figure out where I'd land and so on and so forth. And so my criteria was very simple. I wanted a small company, right? Startup mentality, hunger, and all that stuff, right? And I wanted to do something significant for the manufacturing industry. My background is manufacturing. I've always been in assembly plants and engineering, as such. So that's basically what I wanted to do. And when Eric told me, you remember Dan Murray? I said, yeah. So what's he doing? And he says, have you heard of this company, Vertex? I said, yeah, I did a little while ago, but I don't know much about it. He said, look it up, right? And then I'll tell you what, you got to hear this story, right? So I'm going back 95, 96, maybe 96. I was at JNAP, the Jefferson North Assembly Plant, with the plant manager there. I think his name was Dave Standen. So Dave tells me, at that time I was working with DCT, right, Detour Center Tool, and he says, I want to see all my designs. I said, what do you mean you want to see all your designs? He says, yeah, I mean, you guys are working on my container design, so I want to see it. So I said, okay, which one? He says, all of them. I said, all 85 of them. He says, yeah, all 85 of them. I said, when do you want to do it? He says, tomorrow. I said, that ain't going to be possible. It doesn't work that way. He says, explain to me why. So I said, what we got to do is this, right? We got to bring in a heavy duty SGI or whatever, one of those boxes, and load 35mm tapes into them, like these VHS tapes. And once you load them in, then you bring the thing over and ship it over, and then I'll show you one design. A couple of days later, I'll show you the next design, and so on and so forth, right? Now, fast forward, or I guess kind of mix this with Eric's entry into EAI, right? If I had known at that time about JT and all that, I would have told him, you got to go the JT way, right? So that you can see all your designs in one day, and then we have our design reviews and all that. A similar thing happened. So I've been looking at, I've been implementing PLM for, I don't know, over 12 years at Tata Technologies, and for our customers. And Viz Markup has been Viz Markup, and JT has been JT, and the other companies, the other competitors of Siemens have also been doing their thing. And I really didn't see this quantum leap, right, in technology and capabilities. And so when Eric told me that, man, there is no limit to model size, there is no limit to the number of parts, there is no limit to the number of bomb lines, and so on, I was like, okay, they must be doing something like this or like that. And we started to talk about it. He said, check it out, right? And then I got a demo, and I was hooked. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, right? On my phone, to look at the models that size and to be able to spin them and do cross sections and whatever, it was unbelievable. And so I said, you know what, this is something that I want to, I want to be part of. This is a real good story in terms of technology, and I was hooked. I was hooked.
No, that's great. Thanks, Shree. I think folks like our founder and CEO Dan Murray, Jim Zawicka, who is also the AI. One of the, to kind of echo what you're talking about as far as the lack of kind of technology gain in the area of visualization is, when Dan left Workiva and started looking at how to bring cloud native technology to the 3D visualization space. Jim commented to him, he's like, Viz Mockup, Team Center visualization hasn't changed since you left, essentially. And I think part of that was, as both Eric and I worked in Team Center, product area. So much of it was about getting it integrated into the rest of the suite, as opposed to, which was a critical priority and arguably differentiates Team Center from other suites. But at the same time, there's only so much development funds to go around, and so one of the things that kind of got left behind, and I think it's the same at it's not just Siemens, I think same at PTC, so others, is everybody bought up different visualization vendors, got kind of 3D integrated into PLM, and then just said, okay, we can rest on that, and we've got other areas of focus. And so I think that's Dan with the cloud native architecture, and folks like Matt Hine, our head of product, who is also at Workiva, some other engineers, really bringing the cloud native mindset into 3D visualization was that technology leap that you were talking about that was absent. And I mentioned JT file, and I think part of it, Eric, you're always telling us you guys don't know what you're doing. Meaning you don't know the things that, from a cloud native standpoint that you brought to market that people are, and I know one of the first things that when it hit you that there is no file, right? We're talking about JT, and JT revolutionized visualization, and things like JT Open really did make it a de facto standard. And so But now it's, to us, being in the cloud native world, not having a file is kind of second nature because we didn't have a file or Kiva either. But for you, like, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, so I would start. So first of all, cloud native is not necessarily an enterprise luxury, meaning somebody who's got legacy enterprise software, cloud native is a big leap. You try a lift and shift, you virtualize what you have, you say you got it in the cloud, but you're not cloud native. When I realized some lights went on, like I kept asking you guys, okay, what file format are you using? And you kept saying, we're not using a file format. I said, well, you gotta have a file format. So when I realized that part of the patent pending at the time, and now the patent was, you're using S3 storage, you're sharding the data, which I'm probably too technical for this seminar, but it solves a lot of problems. I don't need a file because I got extremely fast access to pull back the shards into something that you're trying to recognize as a shape. So not shipping files is a performance gain and a security gain. I started thinking of it as, because I've sharded these massive models, it's like taking 1,000 or 100,000, 1,000,000 Humpty Dumpties, throwing them on the ground, smashing them, and then saying, okay, and encrypting those Humpty Dumpty eggshell pieces. So you really don't know they're eggshell pieces, and then saying, put it back together. So there's a security aspect to it. There's a performance aspect to it in terms of S3 storage. And then there's problem solved. Things like in the visualization space, in any sort of scale, if you've got pipes, wires, right, hydraulics, it's trouble in any scale. As soon as you start walking up the scale pace, you got problems. And the problems are, from a visualization standpoint, you look at a pipe and you say, oh, that pipe's it's in view. I gotta display it, and you're wasting time. With sharding and the way Vertex has attacked this problem, cloud native has attacked this problem, pipes, harnesses, hydraulics are not a problem anymore. And that was always a big gotcha when we would go in and start talking to people. They would say, well, got all these wire harnesses. Oh, crap. You got it. Well, we're going to have to bust them up. You're going to have to do like installation assemblies or something like that in order to view them in context. The massive model scale is achieved through things like that too. And we're now seeing and proving to the industry is giving us the biggest of their bigs that they can't view anymore. And we're viewing them, and not just viewing them, we're showing them 100 people in a multi-tenant environment viewing the biggest of big all at the same time. So that, to me, that was always the dream. Back in EAI, I don't know, Mike, if you remember the t-shirts, they were 10 to the 6, and that was the Million Part Initiative. And we all had t-shirts, the Million Part Initiative. And only today, I feel like we've solved that. Vertex has solved that and are light years ahead. The other aspect of this is, from an enterprise standpoint, you're constantly being pushed to lower your cost. And what does that mean, lower your cost? Well, there's cost in upgrades, right? And just massive amount of people planning upgrades, executing upgrades. That's one part of the cost. Second part of the cost is, do I have to change my hardware in any way, shape, or form, right? And most upgrades, you're going to have a hardware change, whether it's on the desktop or in the server or in both. So that adds up to big costs. And I cannot tell you how many customers I've been in where I was read the riot act, that we will lower, you, Eric, and the Team Center team will lower your total cost of ownership. To me, again, being on the cloud, using CPU based instead of GPU. By the way, we tried GPUs, right? Meaning outside of Vertex, the cost profile for GPUs just didn't meet it. So we weren't able to do it. With CPUs and the way that Vertex is doing it, we have a tremendous cost profile in the industry, meaning your infrastructure costs compared to if you went any other way are orders of magnitude lower. The CPU base, the way it's been implemented. And that, quite frankly, I lived for 5 years getting beat up by customers saying, I can't afford you anymore. You got to lower your total cost of ownership. And we made, I don't want to poo-poo anything at Siemens. We made a lot of progress, but then I saw the orders of magnitude at Vertex and I was blown away. Does that answer your question in a very long-winded manner? Sorry.
No,
Mike.
I always appreciate an answer that uses both sharding and a children's book character in the same answer. So that's good. That's for sure. Shree, you have any viewpoint on shards and Humpty Dumpties?
Well, I love both shards and Humpty Dumpties.
Who doesn't? I mean, who doesn't?
No, but seriously though, it's a huge point, right? I mean, when you tell somebody that, from a security standpoint, by the way, my earlier job at Tata Technologies, I was a CIO, and I was extremely bothered about security and all that, and because we were managing our own IP and our customers' IP, the JT file or any other file format, if it's a file, it's something that can be copied, it's something that can be sent, it's something that can be stolen, right? Here, where in Eric's terminology, right, you're basically saying that I've got this beautiful, millions of, pieces puzzle, right? You shatter them up, you kind of completely blow them up, and then you encrypt them, and then you say, go figure it out. I mean, if they gave me all those pieces, I still couldn't figure it out, right? In a 1,000 years. So the point is, I think from a security standpoint also, it's a slam dunk, right? And from a performance perspective, can you imagine future-proofing your investments today? I mean, upstream and downstream. So I was working for some of these customers, the new age customers. I'm talking about people like Neo that make the EV, right, and Rivian and others, Faraday Future and so on. Everybody is looking at engineering and PLM and all these things very, very differently, right? One of the things that came up was we always knew about CAD bomb, E bomb, M bomb, and all this stuff, right? I mean, which was fundamentally manufacturing centric, right? All of a sudden, we're talking about user bomb, right? Which means the user decides what the bill of materials is going to be, right? And based on that, the company will then manufacture that. When people say engineer to order, manufacture to order, it's a lot more than that, right? When you're giving the keys to the end customer, and now you're going to be able to do all those things very easily with technologies like Vertex is bringing to bear, and even downstream, right? And like Eric said, you just have, I mean, if the upgrades and all that are happening, behind the scenes, right, without you having to bother with anything on your end, what's not to love?
No, I appreciate it. I'm glad you tied security to the architecture as well, because I think the brilliance of the Vertex architecture is the same algorithm that's delivering that performance, that's keeping down the total cost of ownership by only using CPU, is also inherently the security mechanism as well, right? So that's pretty unusual to see, I think, from a technology, and I think is the strength of the patent that we just got granted last week, for sure.
Congratulations to all.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys, I'm going to give you each one last question, and then we'll probably wrap things up. So I'd like to have you guys think back maybe last 10, 15 years, and think about the whole idea of kind of expanding product data, 3D data access outside of engineering, and kind of maybe think back about a project or a customer where Vertex would have really changed things up for you, and then try to kind of translate that into what you think we can do for kind of future customers of Vertex, if that makes sense. So, Eric, you want to take the first shot at that?
Yeah, yeah. You know, a wise man once asked me at a conference, why did Google buy Nest? And I immediately thought the obvious because I had just installed Nest thermostats. Their user interface was really good. They were what you got the feel of an iPhone type quality. And I knew that wise man would not ask me that question if that was the answer, because I came up with it way, way too fast. The end result in our discussion that night over beers was it was about the data. So, and capturing that data and being that source of inferring information from that data. When I look at Vertex, and Mike, you know this because I've been preaching this for 3 or 4 months. When I look at Vertex, there's a unique position they have in that they understand the shape better than anybody, and they can view the shape, break down the shape, put it back together better than anybody in the industry, I would claim. When you combine that with some of the enterprise data that flows with it, whether it's, I think you were intimating to ERP, MES, MRO, bringing those two things together and beginning to start to look at, let's take cost or weight, and overlaying that on the shape, it gives the user, first of all, it's their product. You know, if you're in the company, you should be looking at your own product that you're producing, not at a spreadsheet or at some green screen that, you know, is 40 years old. You should be looking at your product and making decisions on your product the easiest possible way. So you can overlay cost, you can overlay weight. The BOM, as you talked about, Shree, whether it's M-BOM, E-BOM, S-BOM, being able to look at your product the way it's going to come together for you, whether it's the service BOM, and that definitely would be different than your, or it could be different from your engineering BOM. So Vertex's ceiling is so high when you start looking at leveraging the enterprise data within the 3D shape. And I'll go one step farther and inferring from both to come back with insights for the user that they'd have to do themselves by huge amount of analytics or, you know, just pure brute force. So us being able to do that, that's our headroom for many, 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 many years to come. Make sense, Mike?
Yeah, no, it's good. I think, you know, talking about the digital twin and how Vertex fits in that kind of ecosystem, where we're able to provide the 3D context, do data mashups without having to own or be the system of record, is kind of the approach, you know, that we're taking, and I think, you know, is ultimately needed. But so for sure. Shree, any final thoughts or points?
Yeah, I mean, you asked about 15 years ago kind of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you, right, we started working with General Motors. There were 2 projects, let me put it this way, right? One project was working with General Motors to digitize and make 3D factories of every single car and truck plant that General Motors has. And we had a tool called Factory CAD, which sat on top of AutoCAD because, you know, AutoCAD was the tool of choice for layout design. And we basically added the 3D smarts to it and all that. And what General Motors did was quite smart. I mean, I'm talking about between 99 to 2004, right? Those 4 or 5 years. So they used, with them, we did this program by the layout, the central layout group. We took Leica scanners, right, the laser scanners to the facilities. And each bay, we scanned, you know, 360 degrees and 270 vertically, and basically would bring the point cloud. So the initiative was bring the plant to the engineers, right? Instead of having the engineers go to each plant and do measurements and validation, right, as you're designing the plant, or an addition to a new plant, and then later figure out that, oh my God, that is this massive structure here that was not reflected in the earlier layouts, right? Those kind of things. So they were validating, and that point cloud was so heavy, right? One couldn't really visualize everything and try to figure out so you had to do a lot of cuts and boxes and so on and so forth to actually look at it piece by piece, and it was okay, right? And I'm thinking, if we had a technology like this, it would have been a slam dunk there, right? And by the way, we did manage to through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, build every single car and truck plant that GM had in factory CAD in full 3D glory, right? And it was done by about 2004, and then GM did a webinar on that and all that. And so that was all great. The other project, right, was we were building something called the factory browser. So essentially we said, okay, so I have the 3D factory, I have JT, I converted the 3D factory into JT. I've got the lightest weight possible for an entire facility. And some of these facilities are massive, right? 500,000 square feet or more. And then I'd want to fly through it. I want to be able to say, okay, show me the Lansing Grand River assembly plant. And okay, boom. Now show me the body shop, boom, right? And then you kind of fly through it. You look at different things, come out, compare it to the Kansas City plant or whatever else. You'd want to do these kind of things constantly, right? And we just couldn't, because these models were just too big, and if you put enough detail into them, we were hitting what technology could provide us at that time. And so from that perspective, I was, when I saw this technology, I was like, man, I wish I had this 15 years ago. So even from that perspective, I think to do all those things and to make the digital twin a reality now is all the more important and all the more possible, I'll tell you, right? We can now, put our money where our mouth is and say, this is possible, right? We can actually do this and bring those assets in 3D, in high fidelity, and do all the kinds of work that we want to do.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shree. So I want to thank both of you guys for your insights and time today. I'm very excited to have you both joining the Vertex team. So welcome again, and really look forward to working with you guys. Eric, I know you have other projects, probably a children's book on sharding is one of them, but whatever time we can get from you, we look forward to. So thanks, guys. Great having you on today.
Thank you, Mike. You've been a great host, and Eric, you're a lot of fun, man.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks.